Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Amazon European Masters. We are just a couple of minutes away from our potentially last game of the day, but before that, a special team just got their first win of the Amazon European Masters at Letta, and we're having a chat with none other than their Italian top laner, Gabbo. And we should have him here at any second, if I am not mistaken. There he is.
Hello.
The beautiful man. Welcome to the show, and massive congratulations on picking up your first win of the Amazon European Masters.
Thank you. It has to be said, no one beats me 6 times in a row, I guess, or something like that. Well, yeah, I guess this is how it went. Obviously, like, disappointing performance from our side during this European Masters. Not happy, obviously, because you always want to do more, and we knew maybe that we could have done a bit more. But it is what it is, I guess. Like, cannot change. But what will change, hopefully, it's gonna be like next split. We're gonna be trying our best to improve our performance, let's say. But obviously happy about getting this win. At least you don't go home without a win, and, and yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you spoke about quite a lot there in terms of, disappointing for now, but looking forwards. And that's something which I want to hit on again and love to get your opinion on this, because obviously getting opportunities to play in competitions like this can be really big learning experiences. Is there anything that you think in particular you're going to bring forward from this event and what you've learned in this tournament?
Well, obviously, like, you always gain something when you get, let's say, beaten this hard, because obviously you get tested by better opponents, obviously, and so you actually understand properly what you are doing wrong. So yeah, let's say that getting out like this, it's obviously like really annoying and really disappointing, but you always gain something, like about your own gameplay that you can improve both as an individual and as a team for next splits. So
okay, but
yeah, I would say we improved.
But even with that, it's still got to feel pretty good for like the whole region actually to get a victory after, considering the teams that were in this group, when you've got one of the tournament favorites and you've got, 3 large, big fish within the ERL pool. What do you think? Do you feel like this kind of bolsters the region of the PG Nats? How do you feel about getting that win for your region?
Well, I would say that this group was obviously not easy. So yeah, I would say this kind of like, I would say this kind of brings a bit the region up in terms of like potential, or like maybe in a bit of a better light. But yeah, I mean, yes, obviously it's good to win against like a team from a major ERL, but I would still say we're not satisfied with it. Like we obviously want to do more, but yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah,
but
you take it, but not satisfied. That seems pretty concise.
Yes.
Yeah, and yet again, Gabbo, massive congratulations on the win. It's very nice to finally see you pick up one win at the very least and not go home empty-handed. But that is sadly all the time we have for you on the broadcast here today. Thank you very much for taking your time out of your day to coming in here to chat with us. And yet again, congratulations on the win. As me and Amara will be turning our eyes back on the next game, it is LDLC going up against Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. It is the battle for first place. Both these teams have locked top 2, but if Unicorns of Love win, we will be going into a tiebreaker between these two teams as well.
I was about to say, it could be half of the battle for first place, because if USC were to walk away with this, we would have ourselves one of those dreaded tiebreakers. We sit around for another game, and I'm personally maybe angling for that, so we get to sit here for another game and shout at some great video game material in this one. But it is an uphill battle, because you look at LDLC, you look at what they've shown so far, and they are a powerhouse at this level.
LDLC is incredibly strong, and looking at this roster, it is an exciting one at the very least. Yike and Ragner coming in the offseason. Eika, Exakick, and DOS both staying from a mediocre summer split where they finished pretty much mid-table. And Yike and Ragner really have performed well. I've seen people on Reddit say Ragner is probably one of the best top laners in the Amazon European Masters, and being completely honest, I think they're probably right.
No, I don't think that's in contention for me. I think that Ragnar's there definitely very much up there. But you know who else has had some great games today? Ibo on Unicorns Love Sexy Edition. We talked about Ruby before their game, being a very tenured player. Lurox as well. Lots of very high-profile individuals with some real tenure. But Ibo has been standing out massively for me today.
Yeah, Ibo really just pretty much gapping everyone. That solo kill against Gabbo, we all remember that was a dominant play. And regardless, I want to turn our attention towards the bot lane, because Amazon European Masters has been around for so long that we see some players perform well at the Amazon European Masters. We saw Dust in second with SK Prime, and then he moved into the LEC with Misfits. He got 13 games of a split. They barely missed out on playoffs, and he got benched in the latter half of the season. And then it all kind of went wrong, it would look like, as he then ended up in the PG Nationals, finishing mid-table there. But now, joining in on LDLC in summer 2021, he's now a champion of the LFL, 5-0 so far, and he's back to prove that he's not done at the top level and he wants to get back into the LEC.
Yeah, I think the way that you, one way to kind of sum that up is progress isn't always linear. You have to take some back steps sometimes to figure out another way further forward. And considering how last year was the era of Karmine Core, this team which came in and blew open the ERLs, and even then, you had Misfits Premier hanging around. The LFL had so many huge adversaries within its region. For LDLC to come in and sweep aside the league in the way that they did and come through and be such a strong team coming to this tournament, for the players involved with this roster, it is a huge mark of honor to do so.
Yeah, it is incredible, especially this roster, right? We've also seen Eika. He went over to the NALCS with Immortals. That didn't work out either. And now he's back to a place where he feels very comfortable.
But what's really
LDLC.
funny about that is that he went over to NA, LDLC won while he was over there, and then he came back. It's such a weird, bunny hopping across the Atlantic to get between these two regions. But while it's happening, Exakick has been on this roster for such a long time in his own right now. A lot of story players in terms of the franchise nature of these players.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, well, who took Eika's place while he was over in LA? Yeah, that was Viego. So honestly, a good mid laner that they got there at LDLC instead, and he's now with Misfits in the LEC. But Eika is back, and he's here to reassert that he's also one of the biggest up-and-coming talents that we have, as the Vladimir gets banned as the first ban from LDLC.
Lurox has had some insane games on the big old bear. It's one of those champions which you can just run over the early game with. Not many junglers can really deal with the volley bear. Someone like Trundle can-ish, just by ulting him and just stopping him from being particularly tanky, but even then you don't stop him having the early game impact which he does have. LDLC over on the blue side does mean that USC have to take away that ever-present red side ban of that Zeri, and that is of course now going to limit what the Unicorns can take away from the LFL first seed.
And Vega also removes something both of these mid laners have played in their respective regular seasons, another Ahri ban. So depending on if we get a tiebreaker, you only get to see one Ahri so far today.
There we go. I'm a little sad because I think Eika has been one of the best Ahris that we have seen actually just across the entire competition, at least in my eyes. Very much outplayed Ruby after a rough early game in these two teams' first matchup. And need we remind you, first time these two teams faced, the Unicorns were the ones that ran away with the early game, and LDLC had to outplay their way back into the game. And outplay they did, very much so, but the Unicorns had a leg up on the competition. Have to see if they can match the same kind of impact today. A lot of early game champions have been removed from the board in the Jarvan and the Volibear. What else have you got to really try and blow open that early game? Of course, it was Ruby going on the LeBlanc last time, which opened a lot of options up for the Prime League third seed.
And as we get through those last bans, the Jarvan side removed the Viego locked in. The Ragner hover was there, but it didn't get locked in. So you said
Ragner does that every game. They do that every game. I haven't quite caught the memo of why that is. I'll need to ask for some advice on that.
Ragner is a one-trick on Ragner. His name is actually inspired.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was just like, they haven't been playing at this this tournament, of course. Ragner's gone through a lot of changes recently, so maybe potentially maybe we'll see that one game this tournament. We'll see. But either way, Yike has been such a force on the Viego, being able to the way that I kind of phrase it for LDLC is that LDLC always tend to go towards the late game 5v5 team fights. But they sometimes have vulnerable lanes, but Yike and DOS on the likes of Leona, on the likes of Viego, get to walk towards mid lane and just say, we're going to support Eika on trying to scale back up. And they're so good at doing that. And having these champions to do so, is this Earth hover up? Maybe a shout out to that last game. Is actually going to be the LeBlanc instead.
Yeah, and that Aphelios locked in as well for Exakick as most played champion of the LFL season. And we saw earlier today when he was on it how dominant he was against Bisons. He won those team fight with the Moonlight Vigil single-handed.
And Exakick has been one of the players to watch, I suppose, of the entire tournament. A lot of eyes directed that way. Had some huge Xayah performances too. But if you're looking at trying to play towards quite a mobile backline in the Aphelios, you can play front to back. You're removing one of the backline access champions of the Ornn by taking it away from Ragner and putting it into Ibo's hands. And I think that's a pretty sensible pickup here for the Unicorns. Question is now, what is going to happen with the likes of your Nautilus, of the Leona, champions that can kind of fulfill that same kind of reliable engage condition to get on top of these crit carries of the Jinx and the Aphelios.
Heading into the second ban phase, we've seen Gwen so far once today. It was Bisons that pulled it out, but it's being banned. We definitely don't want to see more snip. As we are now over to LDLC side, as they really decide to remove the counter to the LeBlanc, the Lissandra.
And when you have someone like a Lee Sin, you know you can play through mid-jungle 2v2. The question is, you know, what are you going to pair it up to help that Sonic Wave become basically a point-and-click ability? If someone's stunned of, 4 or 5 seconds by the Lissandra, it's not really a skill shot at that point. So that's been taken away from Ruby. The question is, what else do you have? Ari is one of the others. You're really looking at Vex as the last remaining individual option that can brawl a little bit harder, LeBlanc, with maybe an outside option of a Rise.
And with Ivo being thrown on the tank duty with the Ornn, the Narband comes through to try and limit Ragnar's champion pool, a champion that he has played this
and
split.
Split push options too, right? Yeah.
And now it's
because you're looking at, we saw what happened earlier in the day when we had like the Narvas, the Gwen, and definitely having someone like an Ornn, you're not really wanted to be sat in side lanes, and of course those bans coming in from the Unicorns, very important to stop that being quite so easy to achieve. On the other side though, talked about Lissandra being that kind of one of those counters. Vex one of the others. Vladimir so far only played by Tempt in the mid lane of X7. Coming out here though for Ruby.
He's played it once in the entirety of the Prime League season. That is certainly a surprising luck. And remember, this isn't a game that doesn't really matter. It's only for pride like it was last game. This is a game that if Unicorns of Bluff win, they force a tiebreaker for first place against LDLC. And then we want to run it back another game today. So obviously, if you're in for tiebreakers, that's what you're hoping for. But LDLC ready with 2 picks of their own.
But when you lock in the Rakan and the Aatrox, I mean, the Rakan is one thing that helps in regards to Vladimir now has a lot of very low range champions with not many ways to lock him down. If you come into mid-game team fights with a 1 item, 1.5 item even Vladimir, who's kind of even to ahead, depending on what happens in this game, you're going to have real struggles in the 5v5s. I think Ruby has a lot of ability to impact this game. Watch our LDLC try and shut down Ruby. I think that's a huge factor of how this game is going to play out.
Wow, this has certainly been a draft that has surprised a small amount. Ragner getting the Aatrox is exciting as well. Obviously, he has played it and it's not that big of a surprise, but it's a champion that is different from what we have seen throughout the rest of the day. But the jungle matchup, though, you said it when it was locked in, another Viego.
It is another Viego. Well, I mean, the Viego, of course, that was that first pick, right? It was the Yike's kind of special, the ability to kind of have the early counter gank threat, which can then really stabilize these lanes. But this isn't actually about stabilizing the lanes now for LDLC. I mean, we've seen it actually when they locked in that, it was the Kha'Zix comp in their first round robin. They've played some different styles of play too outside of the more traditional front to back that we've mostly seen from them throughout the LFL and coming into this tournament too of Amazon European Masters. But I'm looking at this now. I look at Aatrox into Ornn. That's definitely a very important matchup. That's very swingy. That's going to have to be solved somehow by the Unicorns. But on the other side, if you've got the Vladimir becoming this time bomb, the LDLC also need to keep that on the radar and shut them down. So 2 big, huge mid-game team fighting threats on either side to keep track of. Let's see how they get ahead of the curve.
And what a game to pull out of Vladimir. It is such an intense one. It is, as you say, the decider, and Ragner getting the Aatrox as well is certainly something exciting, but it's not all players who are out here with the interesting picks that haven't played that much. Exakick, of course, back on his Aphelios. We've seen it a lot of times through the Amazon European Masters, but also a lot back in the LFL. 13 times he played it throughout the regular season and the playoffs.
Well, I mean, everyone was playing this champion. It's not surprising to hear lots of games on that one, but we kind of put down a couple of targets and say, keep these pinned to your court board, the Aatrox, the Vladimir. Those are the champions I expect to really start determining how a lot of these team fights will go. I mean, if Aatrox gets ahead, so disruptive, able to shut down Ornn in side lane, stop Jinx from free firing. But on the other side, I mean, we saw what Tempt did on the Vladimir in the one game of this tournament. It's been played, but either way, for those of you that haven't had the misfortune of playing against Vladimir, very, very, very dangerous once he does get ahead and starts getting to higher levels of Q, first items, getting Magic Pen, getting that ability haste too. He's such a difficult champion to lock down if you don't have dedicated champions to do so. And the damage he deals, well, he's a bit of a team fighting machine.
And someone who we will also be looking at to try and lead this early game is Lurox on the Lee Sin. Obviously an early game champion, but Lurox Just like DOS, one of these players that managed to get up to the level of LEC, but they did manage to stay up there and really set themselves in stone as one of the starting junglers and supports. And now he's back in the ERLs. He played with Schalke 04 Esports as well, making EU Masters there and on aggro rope throughout 2021. And now he's back though at the Amazon European Masters under the German banner with Unicorns of 6th edition.
And you know, we talked about Ruby earlier in the day, LPL, LCK, PCS, been through a lot of the world's qualifying regions in their own right, but even though you have this amount of prestige in the mid-jungle of the Prime League 3rd seed, you're looking about Eika and Yike, and these have been the players to watch for a lot of people judging the ERLs and looking at them and saying, heck, these guys are the ones to watch. And for me, the mid-jungle 2v2, and indeed the entire top side and how it flows out from that, I mean, Ivo sadly going to have to be sitting there and soaking up a lot of pressure, but those mid-jungle 2v2s could impact that top lane matchup very, very importantly if they get a leg over their opponents.
And Yike is certainly clearing towards that top side, and I think you're right to highlight Yike because he has had an insane split. And the craziest thing about him is a couple of years ago, he was playing in the Nordic Championship, finishing 6th, and then he was winning a Tele Esports Series Sweden. Yes, that is at National League level as Dreamace goes in towards the bot lane but doesn't find anything else. And
but
he was jumping around, but then he joined OPL in LFL Div 2, and he started Giga Smurfing. He won that league, then into the LFL with LDLC,
a real glow up,
Giga Smurfing again.
But
it's insane.
Yeah, but it's really cool to kind of track the history of these players and where they came from in the real grassroots. And sometimes, you know, you may be watching the stream and think, you know, this is the ERLs. Surely these players have always played at these hugely high levels. Not all the time. They have to come through the grassroots at some time or other. And no, give it 3-4 years. Maybe we'll have some of you watching this coming through to G-Mace goes in for an early 2v2.
Yeah, this bot lane is explosive. Both teams really look to get the first, but here's Dreamace takes down with the Ignite, able to get out to safety. That is someone spell burned by DOS, and Dreamace holds onto his.
Okay, and you can see what happens. It used to be that Leona was a very hard Rakan counter. Used to stop him from really going in for that W. You can see how back and forth these 2v2s can go at this point. And Pot's being burned, Summoner's being burned. Exakick continuing to go forward, cycles over to a new set of weapons, and this time doesn't have Severum Crescendum to again have the more powerful laning abilities at this point.
Lurox making his way towards the bot side. Yike, he goes in to try and see if he could steal anything away, but realizes the Raptors were already taken. No more crime scenes there. The Grand Entrance comes in. Reptile gets CC'd up, but they go back towards Exakick, who has the most damage. It looks to be Unicorns of Love 6th edition, as one more auto would have done it. Lurox is here. Can he connect? No, the Sonic Wave flies wide. The Sap gets body blocked by DOS, and both bot laners survive.
Oh, and Lurox not willing to pull the E flash. Maybe thought he wasn't in range, but not quite in position to do so, and 2v2 gets some jungle attention. Ruby now getting chained.
Eika could be looking for a solo kill here. Ruby has to flash away.
Close.
The Ignite is
How many
taking one
takes?
more. Would do it, but it's not there, and Ruby
Oh
survives.
my gosh, I saw 19 HP. I don't know whether that was one tick of regen a little further forward, but heck, running it close to the line. As we said, you got to try and keep this Vladimir down. If Vladimir goes even or ahead into that Protobelt plus boots plus Kindle Gem kind of stage, 1 to 2 items, he starts taking over the game. It's very hard to lock out of Vladimir, who's gotten a leg in into the door before it can shut on the early game. And at least Eika, on an individual level, doing fairly well at just that.
And it's a 1k gold lead for some reason for LDLC at this point. They might try and use a little advantage in this early game to look towards the Drake that has just spawned. Yike is on towards the top side, bot side at the very least.
So, got ourselves 5 minutes up. First Dragon not just taken yet, has been started by LDLC, looking to get their resets, get those first items to fight a little more strongly, while Reptile sat on a cull, sat on that bot side. Dreamer is going to spot out members down here. I'm not sure this is going to lead to anything more apart from just knowledge that they are at this point.
Oh, they simply just throw out the sap and say, hey, you shouldn't do that, but it doesn't really change anything. Yike steals it away, and then they just back off safely.
So, while all this is happening, we've seen a lot of fighting around bot side. We've seen junglers called down into the mid lane too, and what this has meant is actually top lane has been isolated. Now, we talked about the Vladimir kind of being a ticking time bomb on one side. I actually called out the Aatrox on the other, because Aatrox into Ornn tends to get individual advantages. Are seeing that to a certain extent in this matchup. Now, Ornn doesn't mind falling behind a certain amount of CS. That's fine. Ornn kind of expects to be behind in most laning phases. Have to see whether that does kind of crest over a certain precipice where he can't actually stand in lane, though. Has to go back, has to TP, and Ragnar's actually going to do the same. But this time, he knows that he's going to be winning this lane. Knows he's safe in it. And picks up a cull just like Reptile on the other side of the map on the Jinx. Has done so for Unicorn's Love. So knows that the power in the laning phase is already set. Looking to dip a little bit in power immediately to come online into mid-game stronger.
It's the spot lane, we're keeping our eyes on it for now. You never know when this could simply explode into another 2v2 fight. Youngers though, Yike, positioned towards the mid lane, might be looking for something there as he goes for the recall. Lurox was hiding in the bush, we were wondering where he was, and here he is! Exakick could get taken down, tries to trade back with the Caliber, but it's not enough. First blood to Lurox.
Oh, the Zenith-based lands. Of course, that gives a bit of a taxi in for Lurox to safeguard forward. Of course, could have gone just to the minions either way. Gets on top of Exakick, no summoners, and that early 2v2, which we said could go so back and forth. These summoners being burned means that Lurox finds the opportunity, and you already talked about Lurox and how he'd been around the place before. He's had himself some high-value, high-pedigree teams before, in other words, to that level of play. Comes in with a very important kill in this early game. When the last time these teams faced, it was Unicorns, again, finding early leads, but they couldn't translate it anywhere. That's the next thing that they're going to look towards. Haven't even secured, really, the early lead completely yet. Don't need to get ahead of themselves just now.
Unicorns getting a small early lead in terms of kills at the very least. You have to remember, they did that last time around. They even got a goal lead as well, but LDLC simply fought their way back into the game as Reptile goes a bit too far forward, does. CCs him up, but Exakick isn't quite there to follow, so Reptile able to get away. But just remember, an early game lead, especially with these two teams, doesn't translate into a win.
And particularly when you are the caliber of team of LDLC as well, who are so good at fighting in any given situation. Their team fighting instincts second to none almost in this tournament. Well, we'll see how that goes in the best of fives. 2v2 instincts, let's see how that works out.
A lot of 2v2s this game as the Caliber Crescendo is a good combo to dish out the damage and Dreamer Ace. Feels that fully this time.
Well, that is really the premier Aphelios gun combo. You get a lot of auto attack resets, it stacks up your chakram so very, very quickly. And while it doesn't have the immediate turnaround pressure of something like a Severum ult for the healing, you never want to engage into those rifle turrets. Do far too much damage for their own good, and this is going to be a 2v2. Of course, going over to very briefly to the side of LDLC. Mid lane 1v1 though. As much as that early ignite did go down to force Ruby's flash, CS has stayed fairly even. Ruby's still into the game, and mid lane not really been held down maybe to the way that we would have liked to see based off of the drafts and how we know Vladimir is going to be affecting this mid game.
But look where Yike is. Lurox has been down towards the broad side a lot, but he's just back in the base, so Yike could be finding his opportunity, but they call it off as the wave is pushing towards LDLC.
So this is what's interesting there is actually, obviously LDLC threatened the dive, and at this point in the game, Jinx starts to actually feel quite threatened by the Aphelios. Aphelios with that ultimate gets kill pressure over that Jinx. Doesn't always have wave control, but just with the ultimate being online, Reptile should be held to account somewhat. But Unicorns just with the edge of their power in this 2v2, able to stave off that dive, and have to see now how they can survive in the 2v2, which should be tilting over towards LDLC sooner rather than later. And
you can definitely feel, Namara, that these games have so much pressure. LDLC win and they lock first place. Unicorns win and we go into a tiebreaker between these two teams yet again. Run it back. Another round of League of Legends. So they're playing slow, methodical, careful League of Legends. And especially Unicorns of Love, they have two great scaling carries that they want to facilitate.
And both these teams very happy to play that scaling battle. They've done it multiple times in this group stage so far. And of course, this is the first group to conclude its run of games. We don't know anyone else going in towards the top 8, those knockouts in the best of 5s. We don't know them yet, but either way, first seed, very important, means that you're only facing a second seed from another group, and we've seen the caliber of teams from all across the place in the group stage so far. It does mean an awful lot.
It very much does. It's always better to have the better seeding, right? It's simple as that, as the Drake is about to spawn, and it's always good to have a Drake soul as well. So Unicorns of Love may be looking to start their stacking up here with the 10-minute mark being hit.
Oh, that's a lot of damage from Ruby. Pops the ignite too, and the ultimate, but
wow.
Being able to get a... Well, what this does mean, even though it's not a kill, that means that Eika, without a TP, cannot jump forward as LeBlanc to contest anything in the bot side river. LDLC not in a position to contest now.
Yeah, Lurox connects the Sonic Wave, might go forward here, but decides against it, even with Eika being a low HP. He backs off for safety yet again, doesn't want to risk anything unnecessary.
So, Ruby finding a moment to remove Eika's own agency from that passage of play. I think that's a very heads-up move. I like what Ruby did there. It is at the cost of a summon as well, but it means that you get to control this laning phase, this next wave or two of the mid lane, and will stop that LeBlanc from potentially stopping Unicorns from taking a dragon of their own. But we have yet to see, as you were saying, you know, those less controlled fights. It is a very methodical game so far. It's not been about explosive engage. It's been about thinking a way through the next situation. But there has been some action in the 2v2, and you can see the Lurox with the Herald in hand. You're looking to drop that down bot side.
Lurox and Yike are both here, so the junglers ready to pounce at any second's notice. There's on his way towards the bot lane as well. This has certainly been the point of action this game. Only leading to one kill, but there's been multiple fights. The Herald just gets summoned straight up. Grab it some. The Moonlight Vigil connects, but not onto 3.
On to 3, it's only onto G-Mace as well. Kick through. Actually, the kick is going to... Oh, it doesn't quite stop it.
No gold, no Herald. Did you think at the objective you could kind of ask that question because there was no value in it other than the 100 gold when you kill it? Eika might be looking for
Double
2 chains here. The damage not quite there. There was neither of these mid laners can really solo kill each other at this moment.
Oh, I think they can. I think you can see what's happening there. There's ignites. Ruby has a W, but again, you can see that's with the chain. This could actually be very much kill threat. Lurox around the corner, potentially there to safeguard. But again, this matchup, Eika's pushing the ante a little bit further, and this time it's LeBlanc that takes the preferential trade. Ruby actually gonna wait around and help leash the Raptors at the and also be sustained with it. Okay, Ruby gets to stay for another wave. Fair play.
So Ruby is able to survive for now. Obviously, as a Vladimir, you heal up quite heavily as Exakick. Looks to take even more plates off this turret pretty easy. The Calibrum Crescendum combo, it is a good one to spread through the turrets when you get up close, but doesn't have that opportunity as Reptile is there to keep his turret somewhat safe.
I mean, it's still standing for now. Elton John sings.
See, I get that one. I get that one.
You get that one of all the ones.
Of course, it's a world-renowned song, man. How can I not know I'm still standing?
You say that, but okay. No, we've had conversations before where you have completely stopped my music taste. That's fine. It's okay. I don't feel hard done by with anything. Either way, yes, you're right. Very good musician. I'm happy you get that one. We're gonna take the positive spin on things. I'm glad you get at least that one.
I get one reference. I made it, boys.
You're joining the ranks of Goldborg. You didn't know who Pendulum was. See if we can educate the both of you. Moving swiftly onwards. Look, there's a fight. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about a fight. That's kind of why I watched League of Legends, you could say, as Ruby goes in for some poke. That was a very exciting fight. Thank you, Namera.
Cool. Well, that's your allotted excitement for the next minute or so. Dawson, Yike, linking up to go into the bot side jungle. See that Reptile still sat under tab, but Lurox, I mean, this is on vision. Lurox has ult.
I can't steal it.
Not looking for a fight, though.
Yeah, 14 minutes in, only 1 kill.
It's only 1 kill, but we have to see, you know, what does that mean? You know, we talked about the mid lane, how that's been going back and forth, looking for those micro advantages. Where are the carries now, and what can they do? LDLC looking towards this bot side. The flow-on effect of this is actually being able to take vision in bot side. You've got a dragon spawning in a minute. We have a dragon apiece. Dragon stacking, particularly with the Mountain Soul, can become very important. Ruby, not quite at the level 11 mark for a second level of that hemo play, but has maxed out on that transfusion, able to decent damage at this point. But look at Ibo. Just roaming down into that mid lane, has to give up that top lane wave, though. I wonder if Ragnar's actually going to take that full turret for the audacity of thinking he can leave this lane alone. Honorable 1v1s must, of course, be honored. And Ibo is going to have to watch his tower take even more damage from the Aatrox.
I think it might survive as Ragnar gives up on the proc, which he will proxy the wave instead, though, as the Herald will be spawning, or is actually spawned as well. So that's a possibility if they don't want to go for the Drake. Regardless, though, our eyes are mainly on the bot, and that Ignite is a punishment for hitting his turret.
Oh man, so those was back in the day. We used to call that dubstep ignite.
I remember that. That's you
drop the ignite, bow wow, walk away.
No, that was my challenge. See, I'm at that age where I grew up watching YouTube on my very bad iPhone, and being like, "Oh, look, that's so cool."
I'll keep an eye out for your FPS montages. Maybe I'll type your name into YouTube, see if it shows up. You know, funnily enough, I did that for myself once, because just out of sheer fascination. Turns out I'm on a Heimerdinger montage. I'm not on any R-related videos. I had an Earth video of me playing Heimerdinger, making it into a montage. That was if you ever want to like have a really weird moment, just Google your name and see what turns up. It's some strange stuff sometimes. See, for you, Duckling, a little bit harder to do that.
Yeah, a little bit harder, but if I Google my real name, a hairdresser comes up. I tried that when I was in middle school.
Ooh.
I thought this thing was there. I was hiding myself up, but Unicorns of Love, they take the Herald as a punch.
Let's see. So it's going to be a neutral objective trade. LDLC going to get themselves some extra defensive stats towards it. Of course, that would have been very important for likes of Ibo particularly to pick up. Trying to become very tanky on that. Ornn, actually, speaking of the Ornn, we kind of talked about how isolated matchup Ornn gets a little bit.
Oh, the Ghost though.
Okay.
The Ghost and the fancy feet.
Oh, the fancy feet.
Ibo. Oh, he's at the disco club, man, playing Just Dance. Goddamn.
Oh, I was about to just praise him for saying he's actually stayed within touching distance of the gold, and he says completely out of can't touch this. With those fancy feet, not going to eat up any kind of damage. And he's got himself an ultimate if he does want to clear this wave, maybe able to pull the Forge God out. I think the tower's gone either way though. Gonna die an honorable death. It's held itself on high HP for long enough in this game, and I'm about ready to fight on the next one. And again, we saw this with Bison's Unicorns. Unicorns games can sometimes go like this, and LDLC games can, tend towards this end as well, where it is about trying to make as few mistakes as possible and get to your item power spikes, and more about respond to enemy plays rather than instigate them by yourself. And in this game, because both teams are playing like that, neither of them are instigating plays, which means that there isn't really that much to respond to. Playing the safe hand and make sure that you're not making that game losing play that can tilt so many of these awkward matchups around on a very tight margin.
Yeah, let's talk Herald though, because it is available in Lurox's pocket, and if you remember how the last one went, right? Yeah, I didn't get anything. What is the play here? Where does he want to use it safely, maybe?
Okay, so Lee Sin, of course, kind of forced to group with his own team right now, and Lurox is actually caught.
Yeah, forced to flush away the TP comes in solar down. The dude is so good. The super mega death riser doesn't kill anyone, but that is such a big moonlight vigil. The Ornn though is good as well. Exakick sees it up. A 3-man knockup by Ibo. It is massive, but a good turnaround, and they just simply delete Reptile. Ibo though takes down Exakick. Ruby's still alive, and he's running for the hills, but I'm not sure he'll make it out. The flash forward from Yike seals the one as LDLC win the fight.
What an absolute butchery from LDLC. They just carved through the Unicorns. And we were talking about the mid-game fights where you get to 1.5 items. Let's see who comes out on top. And for a second, I thought with the call of the Forge God, with the kick, with Ruby coming in, the LDLC maybe had bitten off onto a very gristle-filled piece of meat. But they are the ones which come up, and Ragner just runs them through with the Aatrox at the end of this. Really want to see actually where the real key turning points of this. We can see again, we kind of called out the call of the Forge God. Right before that, though, you can see that Lurox is
when he goes into the communication to Reptile.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see what happens. I mean, Exakick gets a 4-man Inferno ultimate. Well, it is single item, and it's not the crit, it's not the hilarious amounts of damage. It's still a fairly good chunk through all of this. Although that's being said, though, I mean, Ibo's doing good work, but the top laners, both doing good work. One of them is an Aatrox on 1.5 items, doing huge amounts of damage, and the other one is an Ornn just trying to take out the AD carry. And the Aatrox comes out on top in this one, and Ragner seriously hitting home that mid-game spike.
Yeah, it's a rough one at the moment for Unicorns of Love 6th edition. As they were in the fight, they got 2 kills, but they did lose more than they gained. 4 for 2 overall, as LDLC walking away happy with that one, but they're not fully satisfied. They could always want more. 2 chains, and a kill will surely be sealed up in the top lane. Heartbreaker is available, and he just tries to hold on to it, uses it in the end, and he picks up the kill.
The Alexander Hamilton of League of Legends teams, they will never be satisfied. They'll have to sadly bite the bullet of the Herald taking down their mid lane out of turret, so Unicorn still trying to trade across the map, but what can they do in a momentary 4v5? Perhaps him hitting, that changes things.
Oh, this could be where it all falls down for the Unicorns, as it's the last call to turn it around. A good kick pack, a good solar flare, but this damage is just not quite there. But Ragner is running through it with the world, and the Primary might be losing their hope as he slams down for a double kill. Make it a triple. No, Yike takes it, but they take the fight regardless.
I do, and we talked about, on one side, who was it that we were watching? The Vladimir. Vladimir caught out in that one, rooted by the Graviton. Guess who else is still on the table? It's the Aatrox, it's the top lane carry, it's Ragner. He has been praised to high heavens throughout so much of this tournament, and coming in again, high expectations. LFL first seed, they need to have their heroes stand up and be counted for, and Ragner is counting off the kills. He's getting off in this game. 4-0-2. This Aatrox is seriously taking over.
Unicorns of Love will have to use their magic. We've seen them do so many times before. This Baron gets taken down. Lurox can't make it in time. Ivo can't steal it. It is simply secured as the Unicorns pushed against a wall here. Can they continue to live in the land of sunshine and rainbows, and where the hope of them making first seed is still alive?
No, this one's a little bit more of the fey nature of the Unicorns. Very fickle, very capricious, and Unicorns this time not doling out bounties to their fans. They're might be able to get themselves a mythical bounty of themselves from that dragon. If you take that one down, of course, it means quite a lot to the Ornn, as we talked about when that first mounted dragon came down. But this is looking back to that previous fight. Unicorns are a team that we have normally said don't make that many mistakes. This one kind of was, though. Ruby doesn't have the flash, doesn't have something like a proto belt with the extra mobility too. He's gone for the Riftmaker, you know, extra sustain, that's all well and good, gives them a extended damage, but gets caught by that Gravitum, locked in place, not able to impact that fight, gets second rounds of transfusions and the like. Ragnar has no such trouble running through the fight.
Called and Exakick roots it beautifully with
his Aatrox.
Scale Force, yeah, as you say, Ragnar. Eyes on him, this man has damage, he has healing, and yeah, it's hard to deal with. I think that is fair to say. As he goes towards Ruby, could he just shut him down here again? The W is available, and he needs to use the bull to get out alive. Ragnar is just dominating this game.
Absolutely is, and the thing is, you know, at a certain point, he just passes the baton over to Exakick should the need come around, and Exakick, as we saw, had that 4-man Infernum ultimate come through earlier in the game, and you see that even with all of this, LDLC are in such a comfortable position. They're pushing in across all places. They have themselves a Baron very early into the game, and this feels like a real death blow on this game. And this would be in the group as well, solidifying that first place. Unicorns, they fought valiantly. They got themselves to a point where they only were going to be losing against LDLC. And looks like as it comes down to the final game of this group, however, Unicorns haven't quite met the match of the LFL first seed.
There's a reason they are the LFL first seed. There's a reason they beat Carmine Corp.
Very much so.
There's a reason they beat BDSA Academy, and we're seeing it here. This is dominant League of Legends against who are clearly the second strongest team of the group. Unicorns of Bluff beat everyone else, but they simply can't beat LDLC.
I don't know, speaking of that finals from the LFL, you know, there were some questions about were LDLC actually even in that 5-game series. Were BDSC actually looking like the better team across the 5 games? Sometimes you can actually look like the worst team in a win because of the nature of the victories that you have. But I think LDLC, for this group, for this tournament, they're coming in, and regardless of any history coming in from their regional performances, are, for me, the real team to watch. Coming into these best of 5s, you come out as the second seed from another group, and you are, frankly, fairly terrified of drawing this team.
Everyone has to fear LDLC. Even X7 might be shaking in their boots just a little bit.
I don't know about that. You know, there's something about the NLC as a region. It's too hard to deny.
Regardless,
that being said, I have to say though, I would absolutely love to see a best of 5 at some point in the conversation. That'd be the dream. I think that when you look at LDLC as a team that plays towards these late game team fights, their early game is more about. There's typically been more about neutralizing, about stabilizing their lanes, and you look at someone like these aggressive junglers. Like Haru and other teams waiting in those potential quarterfinal bursts. Of course, they haven't even qualified yet. What a series that would be. Unicorns setting up a death bush, Reptile stepping out of it, but those minions.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. We have to remember though, Unicorns, 10k go behind. This game is hard to turn, but it's not unturnable as they go towards Exakick, and they try to burst him down. The Ornn is there, he's so low. Ragnar TP's in, and when he arrives, he'll surely try to turn this all around, but he's in a 1v5, sees it up. If they can take him, they might just turn around the fight. Ruby is solo, and so is Reptile, as Ike just simply deletes him. Ragnar's in the front end, and he's taking down all. No one can touch the LFL champion that is simply run over the Unicorn. There is no magic, and there is nothing you can do against the LFL.
Oh, and he gets himself another host of kills. He is not an enemy, he is the enemy. Aibo not even left alive to tell the tale of LDLC's crushing victory in this bot side. And again, USC looking for the group top fights. They have this kind of team which wants to be piling all their ultimates onto each other, but they couldn't quite shut down. The Aphelios yet again gets out maybe with a tick of Ignite more. Would have taken him down, but that's not the case. 5 members survive, clean ace. LDLC taking Inhibitor.
They can simply not be touched. They can simply not be beaten. LDLC looking dominant in all their games. The LVP second seed took care of them handedly. The Prime League 30 took care of them handily. The PG Nationals beat them easily as well. That is simply a team that is a level above the rest of them.
Okay, so we're going to go back into this replay, and you can see again, it's actually a fairly good angle from Ruby. Does get the damage they need to down in terms of the combo onto the Aphelios. And the Aphelios isn't actually really part of this fight at this point. Severum helps him kind of stick around in the backline, but after this point, you know, you haven't hit Ragner, who teleports in late. Great use of the stopwatch, and you only have so much ammunition to fire across the targets you need to. They miss their target out by just a sliver of HP, and then you have the Aatrox coming back into the fray, and they had nothing left for them. Now sat on a Cyrilda's third. The extra slow, the extra ability to chase down for more procs and sweet spot, sort of that Q coming through. Very, very dangerous. Armor pen, of course, on top of that as well. So, resetting back into this game. LDLC, a very firm advantage to this game.
Yeah, they are in a firm advantage. They're doing well. And they're simply just dominating. There's not much else to say. Ragner, especially level up buff, but Ika, I want to give a shout out in the last fight as well. So just taking down Reptile almost instantly.
He has himself a Magi's.
Ibo. Trying to steal this. They claim it. You know, that's a silver lining, but they lose the Baron.
You say he tries to steal it. You know, he went down to do it himself because he had that Spellbook Smite. Goes down and gets him. That's the second Dragon coming in. So Unicorns now. Oh, Lord. Yeah, okay, I was about to say of silver linings of all the rest of it. Turns out that silver lining bleeds red as Lurox hits the ground. Eika finishes off the jungler. That's going to be another Baron to the other side of LDLC. And while you might have got yourself onto Soul Point, it's all good being tanky and one member. The other four members, you can see how much burst they just took from the LeBlanc. That's not a pretty sight.
It is a game that is hard to see Unicorns of Love coming back from in any way. I think that is clear to say. 4-1, and they are happy with going through as the second seed. The team just came in really without any expectation. They just wanted to give it their best shot and hopefully make the Prime League proud. And regardless of only finishing second place, they certainly have so far.
Absolutely. I was actually quite surprised when I heard that because I saw how they performed in the plans. I seen how they performed in the groups and thinking, wow, this team it's good. It's really good. I have themselves one last chance to fight.
They actually delete him, but the Moonlight Vigil is good and Ragnar is still alive, and as long as he is, so is LDLC.
Is he?
He's taken down. The Reptile is dishing out the damage. Exakick though, with the Infernum just smelting through the HP bar, but he gets one shot as well. Unicorns of Love, they find the magic and they keep themselves alive.
And as we just talked about, this team from the Prime League having low expectations, just happy they're showing up at this competition. We said that they had little expectations in this game after that mid game, after this early game, but at the very, very last opportunity, 3 inhibs down, the LDLC team knocking on the doors of their base, they find a fight. It's Eika that goes too far forward, jumps forward, and because they use that Sigil of Malice to the basic ability, you don't even have a Mimic to get out of the way of the Solar Flare. Great awareness of the mobility that LeBlanc has. Ragner teleports him, well, gets right into the thick of the fight rather again, and doesn't have the stopwatch this time. Gets to get completely burned down, and Unicorns, out of absolutely nowhere, find a perfect fight for themselves after a great punish.
Maybe, just maybe this game is back on track, still 11k goal behind. It is not just one fight and you come back into the game for the Unicorns, but this makes it easier to go for the next one, but it was clear that it was a misstep from LDLC, so if they don't do that, should still be able to close it out with the Baron buff, but Unicorns of Love still showing signs of life.
They are, and they're also starting to get some other Ornn items now. You've got 3 out of the 4 you can give towards your teammates. Remember, with each upgrade you get on your teammates' items, you get 10% HP, magic resistant armor on your Ornn. Ornn is getting tanky. Is it enough? Maybe not, but it will buy the extra second, the extra 2 seconds for Ibo to hold that door as shut as they can in the front line. Is it enough? Is it enough to clear out 3 Baroned up super minion waves on the base? I'm not so sure about that one.
The base is being melted. Exakick does so much damage as they try to turn towards Eika, but Ragnar on the other side of the fight, jumping towards Reptile, healing the damage. Moonlight Vigil misses, but Ragnar is still alive, and this is it. There is no way to come back. The LDLC, the LFL champions, they're dominating the group. They are taking over, and all of the lights will be on them in the quarterfinals of the Amazon European Masters.
LDLC hand another L to their group stage opponents. Quarterfinals, first seed unlocked.
Wow, what a game as Unicorns of Love. They showed that they could certainly play up to some parts of the game, but LDLC, just another level. It is simply brutal what this team can do when they get going. They take that one lead, they take that one small fight, and they just snowball it so incredibly.
Yeah, and you look at the 2 games which Unicorns had, and it's not like they didn't find any advantages. You know, even in this game, they had some 2v2s go their way. The first game, particularly that mid lane, was so far ahead. But I think that what we've seen between like the level of Unicorns level and then LDLC is that even though Unicorns against other opposition don't show that many mistakes, they know how to play around their power spikes. LDLC do that as well. They also don't show that many mistakes. They also know how to play around their power spikes, but they seem to be that much more refined and that much more deadly when it comes to the real counterpunch in a lot of these fights. So I'm looking going forward at this point, and LDLC, again, it feels like they are the team to beat.
Wow, what a game. I think that obviously as a viewer, you would be hoping that, oh, maybe, just maybe we get into that tiebreaker, but it was clear that LDLC, if it would have gone to a tiebreaker, they likely would have taken that game as well. And obviously, we can't get enough of LDLC on the Amazon European Masters, can we? Because we're having an interview in just a short while. We will be visited by the LDLC Exakick, the AD carry. And wow, he had a great performance this game, to say the least.
I don't think that's not isolated to just this game.
Just
I think throughout the entire group stage, I think that Exakick has had a real heck of a run in group stage.
Yeah, and here he is. Welcome to the broadcast, Exakick, and congratulations on the 6-0. How do you feel after just dominating the group?
I mean, it feels great, right? But I think we can do better, right? I think we were just, how do I say it? Much better than our opponents, right? And I'm looking at X7 and Fnatic Team Queso, which are, I think, the favorites of this EU Master. But I'm happy.
Well, that answers one of the questions I want to ask in terms of looking across those groups. But, you know, obviously you're coming in now as first seed, and obviously you're expecting that basically these other teams. Well, of course, we'll see what happens in the other groups. Maybe they do end up as a second seed. That'll be a heck of a quarterfinals to have. But I guess one thing which I'd love to ask is because, you know, you've been on LDLC for a while now. You've been on this roster for a while. What makes this iteration of this team so special? What makes you click?
I think it's because we like each other, right? Like, I think not even on the Rift, but outside of the Rift, we are just friends, right? And we just enjoy playing with each other. And yeah, we can just tell each other the things like they are, you know? We don't have to be kind or whatever. And it helps us improve a lot, right? And I think also we have a really good coaching staff, which makes draft easy. I think we have the best draft almost every game. And yeah, I mean, skilled individual players and good draft. I mean, it's just,
I can't believe you literally win through the power of friendship. That's not one thing which I would have expected today. But one thing
it's
which
like G2, honestly.
So we've got it.
I think.
Yeah. The LFL G2. Now that's a tagline you can give yourselves. One thing which I'm quite interested in though, because you talked about teams overall, but obviously there's been a lot of eyes on you and a lot of expectations on you as a marksman player, as a bot lane player. Is there any individual that you've got your eyes on at this tournament? You know, we've got yourselves, so like Reckless, Odeon, Bifrost has been stepping up incredibly well too. Lots of other AD carries. Is there anyone that you've really looked at their performance in the group stage and really respected what they brought to the table?
I think I have my eyes on Bean and Crownshot. I think apart from them, there is not many bot lanes that can beat me and DOS in 2v2. Yeah, I mean, I think we could. Personally, I can step up a lot compared to how I'm playing right now. I think, yeah, I just need to step up and be ready for the next bot lanes. But yeah, those are the bot lanes I'm the most, I would not say worried, but I have the most respect for.
Great, and thank you so much, Exakick, for taking your time out of your day and after that victory. 3 victories, actually, when you think about it, to come in here and chat with us. It's been great having you on, and yet again, congratulations, 6-0. You've been strong so far, and I'm excited to see how far you can take that roster. And with that, we'll turn it back to our post-game coverage. The game day is over. Group D is done, Nightmare, and clearly, we have a first seed coming out of this group, huh?
We do. And, you know, I thought it was really interesting talking about that very last question in terms of, you know, who he actually kind of respects as bot lanes across that competition. You know, you do have your Beans, your Crown Shots, your Recklesses, loads of huge names who have wound up at this tournament. And I think there was an important part of the language in there saying in terms of not fear, but respect.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. But looking at the highlights, this fight in particular just definitely made the game very hard for the Unicorns of Love to play.
It did. And, you know, this was after a couple of fights had kind of gone in the direction of LDLC as well. But this one felt like, you know, this was Unicorns trying to swing with the punches after losing a kill top lane. You can see that, of course, Ibo's dead in this clip after dying in the elongated fight in top lane. But they're trying to roll with the punches. They just don't quite have enough power behind it because they've fallen behind at this point. They've lost a couple of fights, and this one was A real killer for them too. Clean sweep out of the middle of nowhere. After the amount of burst they put onto the AD carry, you normally expect, hang on, where's the extra damage going to come through? It's actually going to come through from top laner. Ragner did so much work in this game.
And he's full HP. That man played the Aatrox perfectly. It was a joy to watch him on the champion. And as you just run down the last few kills, we do have to mention though that Unicorns of Love, they did manage to come back for a brief moment, and I do believe that this highlight is the one showcasing it, as they do get the fight.
It's actually quite funny, because one of the things I just said on the way out of the game is that, you know, Unicorns, they don't make that many mistakes. LDLC make even less. This one was a pretty big one though, even though the mistakes were fairly limited in this game. It wasn't enough to solve this game, wasn't enough to do it. And they tried to outplay it at LDLC, and they got that victory kind of got an L handed to them, at least in one team fight. Wasn't enough to seal out that game. And I think as Exakick was saying in that interview, you know, they just felt like they were better players, and it's hard to argue against it with a game and a performance like that.
And with that, obviously, LDLC did like first, but Unicorns of Love also make it into the top 8, going in as the second seed. Obviously, it's hard to start theory crafting who will they be going up against, because the other groups are in Finch. I do believe tomorrow will be Group C's game day, and I'm excited to take a look at that. We will have the standings in just a moment, but it is pretty clear that there is a level difference, but I genuinely think that the Unicorns of Love still have a chance going into the quarterfinals.
No, and as much as they did lose that last game today, and they went 0-2 versus LDLC, they're not a poor team. They have star players to play around. And when you're going into a best of 5, you have to prepare against one opponent. And that can be a very important tool to keep in mind, because then you get to prep for just that one team. You get to dig into what makes them tick, and maybe they can come into those quarterfinals with a bit more unexpected spark.
Yeah, and standings are ready for us to be viewed. So let's take a look at how it's shaping up around the entirety of the Amazon European Masters. As I said before, only one group finished, that is Group D, but it is clear. We also heard Exakick talk about it. Fnatic Kessa looking very good. X7 looking like the other main favorites, but other than that, some strong teams still in the running. BDSA Academy having to do that catch-up work tomorrow in the Group C.
For sure. No, well, actually, so I believe that tomorrow is actually going to be Group B. It's going to be the X7, Karmine Core, Gaming Legion, Phantasma. So, again, lots of teams in there with a lot of pedigree. And, of course, across all of the groups, you're still sat there thinking, we've had one round robin, still a lot of close games, even in that first one. And we got still a handful of games to go. And I'm particularly looking to see if X7 can close out with a 2-0 versus Karmine Core after dealing them such a heavy defeat in the first round robin. Karmine Core looking to get a little bit of revenge, particularly after they handily defeated the other two teams in the group too.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to watch X7, but Gamer Legion as well. Will they bounce back from the 1 and 2? Will they complete the catch-up, the first seed from the Prime League? Will Karmine Corp continue their run from play-ins and make it into the quarterfinals? The defending champions have a lot of power on their shoulders. We're expecting big things from them. And Team Phantasma, can they play spoiler, or can they maybe even manage to pick up a couple of wins? I'm excited.
Yeah, and the thing is, as much as we mentioned these big names, and you do have, you know, the non-accredited ERL teams like your Phantasma, I mean, as much as on paper, they are not necessarily going to be going blow for blow for some of the other teams. If they do, how good of a story would that be, particularly in a group like this? Of course, you have to find that one out tomorrow, and I'm going to be watching that with a bowl of popcorn.
Oh, I am going to be enjoying that. It's a banger group to look forward to. It is one of the ones with some of the strongest teams. But then again, there are strong teams in every group when you really think about it. LDLC definitely looks strong, but that is all we have for this day of Amazon European Masters. Come back tomorrow for that decider in Group B. The questions, we've laid them out. We will have the answers tomorrow. For now, thank you so much for enjoying the show. I've been Duckling, and I've been with the fantastic Namara.
And congratulations on the debut, Duck.
Thank you yet again. Thank you yet again. And thank you to production for being wonderful. We'll see you all tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Don't go anywhere. Or go to sleep. Get some sleep.